on A&E documentary that just aired. Anybody knows I'm a huge Bret Hart fan, so this is going to be fun to talk about.
No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just going to keep you right where you're at right now.
It doesn't matter what you think.
The Wrestling Realm presents Break It Down with Brian H.
Oh, come on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Keeping it 100. This show, of course, is brought to you by the Wrestling Realm. We are right here live tonight on Haps TV and live right here on our Twitch channel. So, those of you out there watching, I hope you got a chance to check this out. Bret Hart's A&E documentary. Phenomenal job as always. We know what the WWE and A&E have been doing, and I mean, just another one they just hit right out of the park. I guess this is the finale. I'm assuming this is the finale. I enjoyed it a lot. You know, right now they have on the things that they're chasing, the little items or whatever. I'll catch that later, but I've been watching these, especially these ones on Bret Hart, and I have to say, I mean, especially the one today. This is one I was, very attentive to. Anybody knows me knows I'm a huge fan of the Hitman. He's definitely one of my favorites of all time. Shout out to Uncle Raj at Roger Heron on Haps TV, joining in the chat. Appreciate it. Make sure y'all catch him on the Flex Zone tomorrow night on Facebook. I thought this was good, well put together. Obviously, I read the book. Matter of fact, well, I think my iBooks app is in the cloud service, but I read the book. I read Bret Hart's book back in 2010, 2011. Yeah, right here. It's right there. You can also see, yeah, right there. I read that book, and so a lot of this stuff I already knew. This book, of course, was written before Bret and Shawn had their reconciliation. So, him and Vince had theirs because he had went to the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. But him and Shawn had theirs because at the end of the book, he calls him a phony and all that other stuff. But tonight was really cool to see. I would have loved, one of the things I would have loved if they could have got into was the whole thing with Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan, what could have happened, what should have happened at SummerSlam 93, but they didn't. One of the things I was most impressed about was the home video footage. Being able to see some of the home videos from the dungeon, seeing Helen being able to pick up the phone and call people, make the necessary phone calls, being able to see, I've seen pictures and stuff of the house, but like I said, seeing Helen walking around, I thought that was really cool. The animations was cool. I did know that there was a bear. I thought that was always interesting. I'm like, wow, they really had a bear. I remember reading the book and I was thinking, like, did I really just read this right? Did he really say he has a bear? Sure enough, he did, though. Sure enough, he did. And so, I thought this was really cool. I really enjoy the story. One of the things a lot of people on Twitter, shout out to Public Enemies podcast, they talked about was, so we just not gonna mention the fact that the British Bulldog was on crack. For those who do not know, the British Bulldog was very elevated in disguise. Before the night of the SummerSlam, he was high and he went into that match, and Bret had to carry him. And this just goes to show you the true professional of Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret talked about this in his book. He said, here they are getting ready for the biggest match. Y'all got to remember, this is for the Intercontinental Championship. This isn't the WWE Championship match. This is the Intercontinental Championship. And as they're getting ready to go into this IC title match, you have Davey Boy Smith, who's the hometown hero. They're in Wembley Stadium. For me, I go back to 92? So I was born in 86. This is right after my 6th birthday. I remember watching this and I'm like, all right, you know what? This is pretty cool. Shout out to everybody watching on Periscope. Also, I appreciate that. Make sure when you guys get a chance, join the Haps TV app and subscribe and follow our Twitch account on twitch.tv at Wrestling Realm. But I'm watching this as a 5-year-old watching the program because my birthday's in August. So SummerSlam is like my birthday pay-per-view. So I'm watching all of this and I'm like, okay, at this time, Bret Hart has become one of my favorite wrestlers. Hulk Hogan is on a hiatus. He would come back for WrestleMania 8, but he's out of the picture. Savage and Warrior are going for the championship. Macho Man's the champion. Yeah, Macho Man's the champion. Warrior's dealing whatever he's dealing with. So Bret Hart is like kind of being groomed as the next guy, the workhorse championship. But he's never main evented a pay-per-view. He's never main evented a pay-per-view. Now him and I'm Mr. Perfect the year before had went on there and put on a classic. That's when Mr. Perfect would, put Bret over. Bret became the WWE Intercontinental Champion. Well, now it's time for Bret to do the favors. And he goes out there, British Bulldog as high as a kite, is recovering. And Bret goes out there, does the job, does the favors, and boom, he's a new champion. Bret would get the title again, and like he said, he had to go through Piper and Flair, two of the greatest of all time. I wish we could have got an A&E on Ric Flair, but maybe that would be the next season. But we saw Roddy Piper's earlier in this season, but you saw that, and that let us know what Bret Hart would become. It's unfortunate, Davey Boy Smith wasn't dependable, and that's why he had to drop the title to Shawn Michaels. But to see Bret Hart go out there and, like he said in the doc, he don't mind losing, especially when it's done right. It's a bigger story. What people don't realize is Bret Hart. We do have plenty of those. Did they do it anyway? If they did, I might have forgot. I know there's tons of Flair docs out there. No, but anyway, I know with Bret Hart. No, what was I about to say? I know with 30 for 30. That's what it was. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, technically, that was a couple years ago. It would be interesting to see how they would put it together, though. I'm always interested in being a documentary junkie. I'm always interested to see how these stories are put together. As I got Bret Hart's DVD, I got the Hart Family DVD, I got Owen's DVD, and all of that stuff is on there. A lot of stuff that was mentioned tonight is on there. But what I was about to say was, a lot of people don't know Bret Hart wanted to put Austin over when he came back, and they was like, "No, we think you should win." And he was like, "But I'm coming back. Austin's the next guy." And I think he even wanted to put him over. Well, WrestleMania was like, okay, let's do the double turn. But yeah, Bret wanted to do business with Stone Cold. That's why it's not far-fetched to believe that if Bret would have stayed, it would have been Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14 because of that. So, I liked watching. I like watching all this, like I said, going in early parts of his career, just seeing him and Jimmy Anvil Neidhart. I think, it's always some things you think about what would have been, if somebody would have been alive, it would have been interesting to say, because, Bret Hart even said this. He didn't want, they were supposed to, when they had that smudge job, when they lost the tag titles to the Rockers, Bret and Jim putting over Shawn and Marty, that was supposed to be the break off for Bret's singles career. But Jim actually went to Vince McMahon and said, "Nah, let's, we can kind of do some more of this, when we get those titles back and get kind of another, extended run." So that was delayed. It would have been interesting to hear him say that story, but I guess, I understand it. I mean, when you read the book, you see why a lot of stuff are cut down to 2 hours and what have you. What's going on, Jawan _ Realtor? Appreciate you tuning in on this episode. If you haven't done so, make sure you follow the Wrestling Realm and follow me on Haps TV. Follow the Wrestling Realm. Y'all can also, if you feel it's your heart's desire, support this broadcast on Haps. They give you coins. You can share them, and you can give coins to me and other great broadcasters. I have coins that I've been giving out to people just because I watch their show, and they're giving me coins. I'm gonna give them to people. But yeah. So like I said, when I go back and I watch this, right, and I'm sitting there, it would have been interesting to see that part. He talked about being the most popular person in the world, and that made me think about something. Bret Hart was synonymous with the WWF. Yeah, Hogan, obviously, no doubt about it. You look at the 80s, Hogan and Vince built this empire. But then you go to the new generation era, right? From 92-ish to 97, when you thought about WWF, you thought about Bret Hart. It was almost like Bret Hart was here. Then you had like Shawn Michaels, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, and everybody else, right? I got a couple video games right here. And if you guys haven't been paying attention, I have been playing these games on Twitch, on the Wrestling Realms Twitch account. I've been live streaming some of these classics. So, who's on there? You see Bret Hart on Raw. He's right there near the W. And then Royal Rumble, he's right there. WrestleMania arcade game is in the system. Might as well take it out, right? But yeah, and there's Bret Hart front and center. So he was one of the faces of the WWF. Man, yeah, Raj, let me tell you, I'm gonna be playing that on Twitch soon. I'm still trying to figure that app out and probably figure out the whole schedule, but I'll probably be playing that one because that Royal Rumble game, I spent a lot of time. I like Raw better. But obviously it came out later, more wrestlers, different wrestlers, but Royal Rumble was solid. Like I said, spent so much hours on all those games actually. And even I was playing WrestleMania, the arcade game yesterday, which I played on Twitch. And I was like, this game only had like 6 wrestlers. And I used to play this all day. Like, wow. But when you're a child, it's not much to satisfy. Now today, you got kids, they playing online and all that other stuff. And I said, we didn't have online. We played the game. We called your friend over. Sometimes you even played the same game that they was playing and you stayed on the phone. That's, that was the days of gaming. But I was a Bret Hart mark so much that if you played WrestleMania arcade game, you played my game, you couldn't win the world title. You could win the Intercontinental title, but you couldn't win the world title unless you was playing with Bret Hart. WWF in your house is another one. I actually just got my brother-in-law's PlayStation 3, so I'm gonna be playing some of the old some of the games. I got to get back on there, and even get in. I might get in your house again. But yeah, so back to this documentary. You look at just some of the things. You move into the rivalry with Owen Hart, and that was the ultimate big brother, little brother rivalry. He said, I'm in your house on Sega Saturn. Do you still have all your games? I'm pretty sure you do. I feel like you somebody who kept all your games, Raj. I feel like you wouldn't have traded them in. You said I have not had. I look back at stuff. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't trade a lot of stuff. And I was at that retro store in White Marsh today, and the guy was telling me that there are a lot of games that there's a lot of games that's still selling for high prices, that being like some of the PlayStation 2 SmackDown games. But me, my mother told me straight up, I'm not buying the games unless it's your birthday or Christmas or graduation. So a new game came out, I ain't have a job, or I was getting a little bit of money but not that much money, I was trading bad boys in, and now I kick myself. I was like, man, my collection would have been like priceless. But I still have all my PlayStation 4 games. PlayStation 4 was when I started working at ESPN. I remember me, and shout out to my boy Wes, we said we're not trading no games in. And I haven't done that. Even now, like buying the games for my kids, the collection is just, we probably got, I might count at this broadcast because we just got them 2 new games again today. So I think we may actually have close to 80 games maybe 60 to 80 games. But I've been thinking about getting PlayStation Now for them because they have some games on there that I know that they would play. And subscription for a year is $44.99. Of course, you got to have a gaming conversation. Always got to have a gaming conversation. Bret Hart, they put him in the newer 2Ks. But, oh, my goodness, the wrestling games, they got to get it right because they need to equal up. If it could just be something like this, if it could be something like this, I would be satisfied. Because a lot of those other games nowadays, man, as I look at my SmackDown case, I get disappointed. But, yeah, Bret and Owen, one of the ultimate matches in the history of WrestleMania. It still holds up to this day. Storytelling at its finest. To hear that this is a story I didn't hear, was that this was something they did as kids, and they put this storyline together for WrestleMania. Now, I do know Bret said they had one match called, and when they had one match called, they changed it because they realized, like, Owen, you're going to be a face because you're doing all these high-flying moves. You're in Madison Square Garden, New York City. These people are going to start cheering you. So they had to redo the whole match. And one of the things he said, he told him, okay, now that we're rivals, let's make this real. We're not going to sit there and travel together. We're not going to be seen together. We're going to make this different. So that's one of the things you can appreciate was how serious Bret Hart took the business. And so, and that whole thing, Bret Hart made Owen Hart into a star. When you really think about that, because you guys think about what was Owen Hart doing before that? Nothing. Yeah, he had the cool music. He was the Rocket. He was going around teaming with Coco Beware, teaming with Jim the Anvil Hart. I believe they was the New Hart Foundation. But they wasn't really doing nothing with him. He was wearing those jumper pants. And then all of a sudden, they lead into that epic 93 Survivor Series. I know a lot of people say it was a bad one, but for me, going into that, it was good just for that match alone. And I believe it was the second match on the card. You had the Hart Foundation taking on what was supposed to be Jerry Lawler and his Knights. But y'all may remember Jerry Lawler had gotten into some trouble and he had to kind of sit down, and they brought in Shawn Michaels to replace, which was a good story because the year before, Bret Hart was the WWE champion and he was defending the WWF championship against the current IC champion Shawn Michaels. Bret was successful, and one of the things Shawn said was, Bret, I still got my title from last year. You don't have yours. But that led to a great matchup with Bret and Owen, and I liked how that story went into the Royal Rumble. One of the things I really appreciated too was the camera angles. When they showed you Bret walking back to the locker room, you saw the camera angles. Wow. I'm watching WWE. I got WWE Hidden Treasures on, and they have the mask from WrestleMania 9 of Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Wow. You know, people out there, they some serious collectors. I tell you, I've never really been interested in people's gear. I know I collect the championships, and if I got a real championship, let's say somebody handed me a ring-worn belt or whatever, or, it was at a $300, maybe even $500, I buy it. But you got some serious field collectors. But just that whole telling that story of Bret and Owen, I thought was great. It was a nice little shine on Owen. Obviously, we would get into Owen's death, which we just saw on Dark Side of the Ring the end of last season. That was probably one of the toughest episodes. And in this case, this one right here, it was still tough. It's always tough to hear about that. I felt like, wow, you only brought Mark Henry in for this, but it made sense. He was there that night. He was in the nation with Owen, so I get why. And I guess they, when they did some questions, they're like, hey, we got some questions. Let's ask you about Owen Hart. We want to fit you in on this episode. So, but one of the things that they really got into, of course, was the screw job, folks. The screw job. And I've said this on Twitter at Brian H. Waters. And I will continue to say this at Brian H. Waters on all the Wrestling Realm channels, on all the Wrestling Realm platforms. I'm going to continue to say this, folks. There is absolutely no way, no how Bret the Hitman Hart would have taken the WWE Championship, the WWF Championship, the Winged Eagle. Matter of fact, this oh so gorgeous championship. By the way, this right here is kind of faded off. Signed by Bret the Hitman Hart. Yes, signed by Bret the Hitman Hart. Shout out to my big bro, Dr. D. Oh, snap, banging the mic. You know, sometimes this right here, you know, I for those who shout out to Brian from Texas. What's going on? And shout out to Hearts. She says he wouldn't have. I hope I said that right. Let me know. The man with 1,000 belts. I wish. But there's no way he would have taken this title. There's absolutely no way he would have taken this title to WCW. Remember, here's what we gotta remember. So, and somebody did bring up, I think the best point that's ever been brought up, because nobody's ever brought up this point. They said it still wouldn't have prevented Bischoff from saying, I just signed the WWF champion. Right. That's true. It wouldn't have. But Bret, he said a smooth finish. Now, maybe, just maybe, I don't know. Maybe we can come up with some alternative scenarios, right? Now, obviously, hindsight's 2020, whatever. But Bret Hart did not want to go to WCW, folks. It's not like he wanted to go. It's just Vince couldn't afford him anymore. He took a less money to stay in the WWE. And I get it. Vince didn't want another Alundra Blaze, not with this championship. But it says Bret didn't even have to wrestle. That's a good point. Bret didn't even have to wrestle that match. If he really wanted to screw WWE, just imagine him saying, nope, I'm not going out there. Thank you, Hearts. She cook it with grease. Make sure y'all follow her. And I'm going to put this on the screen because for the people out there who are watching on Twitch, who are watching on Haps TV. There we go. It's working. I want y'all to make sure y'all give her a follow. Check out the Talk of Champions. But Bret met all of his obligations. And if Shawn Michaels wasn't being such a difficult person, he would have did the job. Shawn Michaels put him in that situation, saying, okay, but I wouldn't do the same for you. Come on. Now, if Shawn Michaels, did anybody ever think maybe Vince McMahon should have told him to apologize, man up, or say something, or tell him he didn't mean it? I don't know. But, you know, Shawn was always coddled and this, that, and that. Here's a hot take for you. I guarantee you if the shoe was on the other foot, Shawn Michaels would have done it. Because when you really look at it, Shawn Michaels' boys was already over there. Shawn Michaels' boys in Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, they were already in WCW. Oh, don't forget X-Pac. He was always almost on his way out. He was willing to give them more days after Montreal. You know? So, and then like Stat Guy Greg said on Twitter, from the Cheap Heat podcast, he quote tweeted saying, you know, he talked about the lawsuits. They had already dealt with the lawsuits. Bret was willing to work well into December. I tell you, like I said, Hearts is bringing it. You know, it's always good to see fellow Bret Hart fans on here. You know, because that's why I'm gonna hold this title. This is the Bret Hart belt. This is what he said to me when I was nervous. I ain't gonna lie. It's the only person that ever make me choke up like, hi, nice to meet you. You know, and I've interviewed doctors, you know, for work. I've met athletes, you know, stood next to LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, whatever. But yeah, Bret Hart was like, had me. But he even said, he's like, oh, Bret Hart belt. I said, the Winged Eagle title. He said, yeah, they call it the Bret Hart belt. Looks better than the piece of crap they got now. And at that time, we're talking what's this, 2011, they had the spinner, which you can guess that Bret Hart wasn't a fan of him. That's getting a little heavy. But the thing is, it said, other than Kerry Von Erich, Bret Hart was another reason why I enjoyed wrestling. I mean, he was, and people always say, oh, Bret, and then I got into a fun Twitter back and forth with the Public Enemies podcast because they said, Bret Hart was, Bret Hart was like an athlete, cut dry and to the point. I was like, dry? Come on, Bret wasn't dry, but they said, it meant it in a compliment. But I never thought Bret was dry. I thought he was real. Like in his matches. Thank you, Justin. Justin Rich said, look at that gorgeous belt on the Twitch feed. I always thought with Bret, his promos made you believe. I'm from Baltimore. What up, Stan? Yeah, his promos made you believe he was going to go out there and win this wrestling match. He made you believe the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. You go around school saying that. But, he was like, I always think about his promo before the 95 Survivor Series. He said, he got his work cut out with Diesel. And just the way he talked about it, and when he sat there, it wasn't all this. We got to remember before that, yeah, you had your Dusty Rhodes, you had your Hulk Hogan's, your Macho Man's, but Bret's promos was a different style. He wasn't trying to sit up there and like, no, he talked to you like a real person, like a real man that's getting ready to be in a fight of his life. That was all a shoot to him. And he took the business seriously. That's why it hurt. That's why I can't ever think Bret would have taken that. If he came and said, Brian, you know what? I was going to take the belt to WCW. It would be the biggest shock in the world. He was real in his promos, not an advertisement. There's no way I would ever think he would do that because he loved the business. He said, that's the first thing he said. We heard you talk. He's from Baltimore. That's a lot of people say. I guess he was 2-time Intercontinental Champion, but he was definitely somebody when you sat back and you watched him, you believed it. And I don't get it. Maybe, look, I can understand why people don't like Double H besides the, the stuff, the racist stuff. I can understand why people don't like him. Some people say, oh, it's the same thing. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, whatever, right? But when you look at Bret Hart, he reprogrammed how wrestling fans enjoy wrestling. That's why he was one of the most popular people. In this book, he even said that he was getting more fan mail than Hogan. But he also enjoyed his fans, right? He said in WCW, they made him, they was going heel face. And he said there was one time he looked, and Hart's I'm pretty sure remembers this, that one time he was about to turn heel. And he felt bad because he saw that fan and how much he meant to them as a person. Yes, wrestling meant the world to him. And you saw it, like, you watched this. yeah, Hogan, he just destroyed his rap. When you watched this, you saw why he enjoyed the business so much. For all the stuff, his fathers, his brothers. And look, this is one thing. Bret was what? Number 7 out of 12 children. And the best wrestler, the most successful, one of the things his brothers and sisters was jealous of, and they ain't really getting to that. But, I read the book. I watched the docs, they was jealous of him. But he was like, he just wanted to be the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. I thought it was really cool that they was able to get, I can't stand Hogan. I disliked him since I was 6 and I'm 40. I get a lot of heat because, I'm a Hogan fan. I read his book. That's a whole different conversation. I just don't agree with a lot of stuff he do. And he had chances to get things right. He didn't, but that's a whole different story. But when I look at, I was waiting for them to talk about that family. Yeah, I wanted to see if they was going to really go into how much everybody was jealous of him. They didn't go into the fact that And I guess because out of respect to Anvil and Davey, they wanted to keep it, lighthearted. But how Bret felt they was using his depth, and his sisters was trying to get their husbands jobs by being buddy, not literally, folks, but figuratively in bed with Vince, because of the fact that, after Owen died, they was being nice to him, and then him and Martha in the midst of a lawsuit. It would have been nice to see Martha talk, but we obviously know why. But I did think it was cool to see Julie Hart on there. We all know she's a big part of his life for obvious reasons. But one of the things I was thinking about Dark Side of the Ring, and I was listening to the Job and Tears podcast earlier, and one of the things they talked about was when Ultimate Warrior, had a whole, basically, excuse my language, a Holodex, and when he was overseas, when he was on the road. And I remember Bret talking about his days and how he had, a couple ladies in this town and that town, like, oh, okay, well, he was the excellence of execution. But it said they didn't talk about how bad, that too, how they didn't talk about how badly the screw job tore the Hearts apart. And a lot of people, and I'm glad he said it. He resented when people say he's being bitter, because nobody else was in that situation. When you really think about it, nobody else had gave their blood, sweat, and tears. Vince McMahon, 12 years, no days off, never hurts anybody. Your best attribute is being dependable and available. Bret never got suspended. He finally took his break when he said, okay, Shawn, here you go. Here you go. I'm putting you over. Take this and take the company. And what did Shawn do? He wanted to wrestle with his friends. And then eventually, he lost his smile. Bret ain't have time to lose his smile. He was, yes, Brian, the true definition of a fighting champion. The true definition of a fighting champion. And that's why, I always appreciated his work. I always appreciate everything he did, because he went out there and he was legit. He said Shawn fumbled the belt. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say he fumbled the belt. He definitely, the pressure got to him though. But it was a couple of times where it looked like he was going to drop the title. But for Bret, it's also unfortunate that when you really think about it, his second title run was where, Vince was like, okay, yeah, Bret, we're anointing you as the guy, right? His first championship, yeah, they put him over, they put the title on, but we all know in wrestling, that first title is like, kind of you're getting used to it, and Bret was a fighting champion. He was right there redefining everything. Oh, yeah, definitely wasn't on Bret's level. The pressure was on Shawn, WWF versus WCW. That is true. But Bret redefined what a champion was, because what he did was, wow, Beefcake's mask worth $3,000 to $5,000. You only saw Hogan on Superstars cutting promos, right? But Bret, here comes Bret. He's defending the title here, this week, that week, and he's having these matches. So he redefined what a fighting champion was. He set the tone for so many people. He set the tone. Like, that's what he said. Like, at one point, Shawn Michaels was thanking him. He set the tone for the smaller guys. We didn't have that before. But that was the first championship. When he got the second one, it was cool. Yeah, Hogan wrestled 2 to 3 times a year, on pay-per-views, obviously the house shows. But when he got that second title reign, that was like, okay, boom, you're the guy, go through the company, whatever, and that's where he made Owen Hart into a star. Yeah, he was the first one to let you know a little guy could win and thrive with the belt, and really little compared to Hogan. Savage was little, but Savage had that syndrome to kind of make him seem bigger, whatever. But yeah, Bret set the tone for, if there was no Bret Hart, there's no Shawn Michaels, there's no CM Punks, there's no Daniel Bryans, etc. And then you look forward, you move on. The third title reign was, okay, we get you right. We need to get ready for Shawn. So yeah, here, hold this, because we don't want to do Shawn and Diesel again, but we need to anoint Shawn and we need you to put him over. So it was just a placeholder. And Bret and Bulldog once again, high. They still had a good match. You know, Bret was able to get the matches that he needed out of people. You know, people forget, even in 95, even during Diesel's run, Bret Hart was still a focal part. He was like John Cena. He was still a focal part. He might not have been in the main event, but you think about his program with Hakushi, that whole program with Jerry Lawler. Really, you know, and it's so much Bret Hart greatness that you could have went into, but also you respect the time. But it would have been nice if they could have went into that. But, you know, his program with you know, like I said, those two, and then obviously, you know, with Backlund, that was whatever. And then eventually getting back to the championship with Diesel and then so forth. And then, you know, his 4th title reign, that was cool, but that was what 5 seconds or whatever. And then the 5th was obviously to get ready for Shawn. You know, the 5th title reign may have been a legit one. Unfortunately, you know, you had Shawn and Undertaker, and they was focusing more on that story, and Bret was going against people like the Patriot and stuff. So that's unfortunate, but, you know, it was good to see that. I'm glad Natty, you know, explained, you know, I liked her talking about, you know, the makeup and how, you know, it was just like, well, this is why we did this, right? This is why, you know, yeah, they made up, but you got to have something to set up a storyline. I'm one of the few people who actually enjoyed the Bret Hart Vince McMahon match. Every match, in my opinion, doesn't need to be a 5-star match. It's about the stories. I will say this too before I move on to that point. Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith, for the Chris Jerichos out there who say you either have a good match or a good story, Bret and Davey had a phenomenal story leading into the match, and the excellent match, perhaps the best match still in SummerSlam history. Perhaps. But, you know, Bret and Davey, Bret and Vince, you know, that was a great story. You know, it was definitely a great story, and it was one that I really enjoyed, as, you know, everything that they went through, and it was good to see. And I still remember this is the last WrestleMania I watched with my uncle. But I remember us watching this, and everybody in the house just popping. You know, we was having a WrestleMania party, and everybody just popping for the fact that Bret Hart was beating the crap out of Vince McMahon. All that frustration from Montreal and everything, and now Bret had finally had his hands on him. So that was really good. You know, I wish that the WCW stuff. I'm glad he, you know, Bret. Somebody, I think Public Enemy tweeted this too. Bret, the type of person outside of Shawn, if he had beef with you once, he had beef with you for life. You could tell there's still hurt there with Goldberg and Hogan. Hogan on how, you know, they kind of pushed him to the back, even though Hogan and Flair kind of said, Bret, come to WCW. We got you, XYZ. And it was like, oh, yeah, you just stay in the back. You're just the US of mid-Carter. And they didn't know what to do with him. Vince told them they didn't know what to do with a Bret Hart. But you really wish a lot of times as a Bret Hart fan, they could have figured this out. They could have figured that money situation out, right? Because Bret even said this. Yeah, after all that, they couldn't pay me, but then they go get Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson was saying, he said his Hall of Fame speech, it was a crucial point in his life. WWE needed him, and he needed WWE. But it would have been really cool if you could have seen Bret and Tyson, Bret in that era. And Bret, you know, a lot of people say, oh, he didn't like what they was doing in the business. Well, there's a walking storyline. They would have figured it out. So overall, I really enjoyed this one. I figured I was going to go live. You know, like I said, we got the Twitch channel up and running. So if you haven't done so, make sure you follow the Wrestling Realm on Twitch. I appreciate everybody who tuned in. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. I'm going to put this on our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, make sure y'all subscribe there. We will definitely be coming back. Yeah, Bret would have adapted. Absolutely. Even if he would have been like Owen, you know, he's a draw. I guess he said Bret is a draw. Vince, I guess, tried something different but failed. You know, he would have done wonders with Bret and Austin. You can imagine what they would have went through for the title. Bret and, you know, you look at Bret and Rock, you know, what they could have done. I mean, it's so much. And then you think about, okay, if Bret Hart's still in WWF, there's so many what ifs, right? You know, you like to believe Owen Hart wouldn't have been the blue blazer again. You know, Bret could have stood up and said, okay, no, don't do that. He would have stopped him from doing that stunt. Bret Hart wouldn't have got the concussion. Bret Hart in WWF 98, 99 definitely would have been amazing, Hearts. It definitely would have been amazing. You know, you think about it, though, like Bret and, oh my goodness, you know, so many people, but also think about the people who didn't get an opportunity to get over. I mean, Bret and Ken Shamrock. You know, Bret was a star maker. No doubt about it. He was a star maker. It's unfortunate we lost Brian Pillman around that time too. You think about what the Hart Foundation could have kept, how much they could have kept going. You know, it's just so much. And that's the thing. I mean, wrestling probably the one industry that has the most what ifs, especially because everything's with the power of a pen. So you think about that. I said, I would have loved to see Bret versus Taker in a normal match with no special guest referee. Absolutely. Their match at Royal Rumble 1996 was one that I enjoyed. I know a lot of people, it's unfortunate it ended in disqualification, but I understand why. You had two faces. You wanted to protect Taker going into this feud and set up the feud with Diesel. So that's understandable. You know, you also had, but I mean, just look at what Bret was able to do with Kevin Nash, you know, on so many different occasions. So, you know, I mean, and then you could have rehashed a Bret versus Owen. Maybe Owen would have been the baby face, you know, Bret versus Jeff Jarrett. I mean, there's so much, you know, and a lot of times I try to do it on the video games, but it's still not the same thing. I think, you know, I need the right game. WWE 2K ain't the jump off. It ain't it, folks. You know, I tried, but it's frustrating. And then at this point, 2K19, even though it moves smoother, it's just like everything's so outdated. So, but I'm about to jump off of here, as I appreciate each and every one of y'all tuning in and taking time out to celebrate the Hitman. Thank you. Nash was too basic for me, too stiff. You know, Kevin Nash was swag, though. He walked around. He was big sexy for a reason. You know, I had a Wolfpack shirt, you know, and I was, you know, but it's crazy. It said Bret and Jeff. Wow. Heart emojis. Are you talking Jeff Hardy or Jeff Jarrett? Because you're like the first person that I've ever heard share a heart emoji over Jeff Jarrett. Maybe it's not because of his looks, and I could be wrong. Yeah, Nash was, you know, I definitely had a Wolfpack shirt. It's funny to when you know, hindsight being 2020, you realize, wow, Wolfpack was the beginning of the end. But at that time, we enjoyed it. You know, I know I did. I know my friends did. And to this day, maybe, you know, we know Sting was in his drug addict days during that time, but looks wise, as far as like the gear and the merchandise, that's my favorite Sting. You know, I just think that whole red suit looked really cool. That was one of the things I liked about WCW NWO Thunder was you could change the outfits. I'm pretty sure you probably could do that on Revenge. I was a PlayStation guy. If you watch the top 5 video games episode of the Wrestling Realm, if you haven't done so, check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. But as a PlayStation guy, that was the thing. I had all the PlayStation games. So, you know, that was the thing. Wow. Okay. Sleep with a Jeff Jarrett pillow every night. Interesting. That's very interesting. You're the first person. I mean, if somebody, everybody, and Rod says, yes, you could change the outfits. I'm still in the hunt for a Nintendo 64. I know I said that earlier in the broadcast. I went to the store today. They didn't have any. They said they're hard to keep in, and I ain't trying to pay $200-300 on eBay. All right, yeah, definitely would love to come on Talk of Champions, and gotta get you on the Wrestling Realm Now podcast. We definitely coming back. I think we're gonna be back this week. Haven't talked to the real Dwayne Allen, but last week I was so busy. So shout out to him for sticking with me and understanding. So a lot of stuff I was doing was like, oh, okay, boom, and jump on, talk live real quick, whatever. I wonder why Sting stopped working out back in '97 to present. Oh man, well, what do you think about Sting at AEW? I know, you know, right now, last week, I think it was last week was the pay-per-view. 2 weeks ago, you know, he was wrestling Would definitely like to know, Brian, what you think about Sting over in AEW as far as him being with Darby Allin. I think the Darby Allin shirt and the Sting shirt is cool. I'm kind of waiting on the turn. I think Darby turns on him. Jeff Jarrett's promos in the 90s sound like a car salesman. They do, but that worked for him. That's the thing. Like Jeff Jarrett, you know, it works for him. That's what makes it so funny. So yeah, let's definitely make it happen. We'll set something up. Yeah, that's what I look back and I've been listening to the Jeff Jarrett podcast, and I'm like, yo, I didn't like this dude at all for the most part growing up, but on the podcast, I'm loving his stories. Like, he's a great storyteller. He's talking about times that I vividly remember. The Owen Hart episode, it was great to hear him talk about that. Especially he was like his tag partner and pretty much like his best friend, his road dog at that time, no pun intended. So he said, I like it. I really think Sting should be in a mentor role like Arn Anderson. Yeah, I think so too. I'm a little wondering about a lot of these moves though, with these former WWE people going to AEW. On one million, it's like, all right, this is really good. On another hand, it's like, oh, come on now. Now, this is what I would like to see. If you're going to do that, I would like to see Dark, and a lot of people may not like what I'm about to say. I would like to see Dark not be a showcase of the indies, but have a lot of those stories. Even you could use that for Dark Elevation, but I would like to see AEW utilize their roster more and have storylines on Dark, not just matches. And that's where you could really get everybody the much needed TV time, you know, and just make it better. You know, because I want to see, like I said, I'm happy that these people getting these opportunities, but now, okay, you see all these people get released from WWE. We just saw Andrade show up. So then you think, okay, who's getting pushed to the back? Because now Andrade is going to have TV time. He's already seasoned because he's got the WWE. Yeah, bring out the character development. He's already got the WWE seasoning on him. You know, he feels he could do better. Now's the time for him to roll the dice, because was he patient or was he not patient? That's going to be, you know, what we see. So I was always a fan of his. I think he's a great wrestler, and we see him, you know, the word on the street was that, you know, Vince told him to learn English. Well, he spoke English the other day, but his work, I thought Angel Garza, though, showing up on Raw next to him was a bad move, and then he gets suspended because Angel Garza has the charisma, but it's unfortunate. I'll be interested to see what happens with Tommy Yen, formerly known as Aleister Black, see what he does. But I don't want everybody to go to AEW. I would like to see, you know, Impact become a major player in the wrestling business again. I want to see them on a bigger TV platform, because there's some good wrestling over there. But we're programmed to think it's so bad because of how bad it's been recently. So, but everybody, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it as always. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on all podcast platforms at Wrestling Realm. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Realm. Follow me at Brian H. Waters. You can follow me in the Wrestling Realm everywhere. Just the same thing. Try to keep it uniform. But you know, you can always Google and you see. I would like to see Impact and ROH elevated with the WWE releases. That's true. NWA is another one. They're just behind a paywall, and I'm not going to pay for that. You know, I would pay for the pay-per-views, but I'm not going to pay to watch wrestling every week when I can watch another show. I'm just sorry, but I understand. Get your money. So we'll see. Till the next time, folks, I'm Brian H. Waters. So long, everybody.